listened to the news just in the last couple of days, but this is really a timely panel because the media right now, the news is filled with conversations about raising the minimum wage, and the Gap, just yesterday, the Gap clothing chain, said that they're going to raise the minimum wage for their workers, $9 this year and up to $10 next year. And then Walmart has said first they would look at it, and then they backed off and said they're going to kind of keep things the way they are. And so we've got some people tonight who can help us understand the struggles that have been going on, particularly with Walmart, and trying to organize Walmart workers for that. With us, the first speaker tonight will be Dr. Joerg Rieger, who is the Wendland-Cook Professor of Constructive Theology at Perkins School of Theology here at SMU. And I consider Joerg to be what I call an activist scholar. He, for more than 2 decades, I guess, has brought together theology and the struggles for justice and liberation that our world is dealing with today. He's going to set a theological context for us using analytical tools from cultural studies and critical theory and religious studies. And then we'll have 2 presentations, one from Kobe Harris here, and the other from William Cox. Kobe has been on the front lines of the Walmart struggle, and he, like many workers in the last century and also continuing, unfortunately, into this century, has experienced in flesh and blood the sting of speaking out for workers. He was fired from Walmart about 4 months ago for his organizing activity, but that hasn't stopped him. He's continued to organize it. Many have seen him on the Melissa Harris Perry show on MSNBC. And then William Cox is a member of, let me see if I get this right now, United Food and Commercial Workers. He's the lead organizer for Region 5, which includes Texas. And so they'll bring to us some word about the struggles that workers in those industries are engaged in. And then we'll end with Rosemary Rieger, who in this moment is an organizer for Jobs with Justice. She's worked with Jobs with Justice for about 10 years now, and is now part of the paid staff. She brings her analytical skills as a molecular biologist to social justice issues, and so she has, if we can make sure that the system is working, we think it is now, she's got some images of the recent protests here in this area related to Walmart. And it's going to be shown only on that screen up there, so those of you on this side, when it's time to show those, you may want to shift over here. After everyone has spoken, then Joerg will kind of close the session, and then we'll open it up for question and answers. And it's during that time that a couple of us will move about, and we don't charge admission for this, but we do take up a collection as a way to help us defray the cost for honoraria for the speakers. One other thing I wanted to let you know about, as you may notice as you're coming in, on the tables out there are some books. Joerg is a prolific scholar in addition to his activism, and he brought 3 books tonight that are pertinent to the topic. No Rising Tide, Theology, Economics, and the Future, that's $20. Occupy Religion, the Theology of the Multitude, that's also $20. And the latest book, Religion, Theology, and Class, $25. So Joerg will be at the table out there, and we'll be happy to talk to you and sign books after break for refreshments and further discussion. I want to ask Bill McElvany to say a few words about the upcoming event in March for Faith Voices.
I think most of you have the flyer when you came in the room, so we're really excited about Bishop Mel Talbot. He's a bishop of great courage and is leading the Methodist Church, but it has grown for churches of all denominations. So please plan to come if you can and bring some friends. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. But please look on the back. We have a conversational brunch on Friday morning. We know that some people don't drive at night anymore, and some will want to come both Thursday night and Friday. And so you do need to sign up for that by March the 24th, the Monday. We'll have a catered brunch from 10 to 11:30 and the age them out there. So we're delighted you're here tonight, and we look forward to having you back again on March the 27th. Thank you.
So please help me welcome our panelists.
It's great to be here at Northaven tonight. This is a familiar place and familiar faces. And it's really good to be together with this panel because as you'll find by the end of the evening, there are really some exciting things happening. So we're not just talking about trouble and struggles and suffering, we're also talking about some successes and things that are changing. It's my role as a theologian to talk a little bit about how this belongs together, how labor belongs together with religion. Because this is not something that necessarily goes without saying. You know, people of faith, of course, understand themselves as related to the world, and so we might think of religion as something else that religious people should care about. You know, labor is something else that religious people should do if they have enough time. But there's a weird split if you think about it. Very often we behave as if religion was mainly related to leisure time. We have time off work, you know, like Thursday evenings or Sunday mornings, that's the time of religion. And then, you know, Mondays to Fridays, Saturdays, we go to work, and the two are not connected. So religion has to do with what you do off work and labor something else. The reality is, if you think about our Abrahamic traditions, that's the Jewish traditions, the Muslim traditions, and Christianity, this is a lot more related to labor issues than we usually give ourselves credit. If you open your Bible at the very beginning, there is one of the creation stories that talks about God as a worker, right? God planting the garden, God then forming Adam, the human being, out of clay. And there's no mention that God has people that he or she commands, you know, says, well, you go there, you do it. God's not the CEO that puts others to work, but God's the one that does the work, that actually acts like a worker. And then, you know, the kid in Christianity, God's kid, God's son, Jesus Christ, well, happens to be born as a construction worker. That's that Greek term that we translate carpenter usually. It really means construction worker. And in those days, those people were basically laborers. They worked on large construction projects, mainly for the Romans, that needed a lot of labor. And they went through some of the things that the Walmart workers are going through today. Namely, they had to work long hours sometimes they didn't have enough work, and quite frequently they would have experienced unemployment. So if you think about Jesus next time, think about Jesus as knowing probably full well what unemployment looks like. So here we have God's self, Jesus Christ, very much experiencing the life of work. And if you think that God is God, he might have had a choice where the boy was born. You wonder why Jesus wasn't born in a nice church setting, or perhaps in the palace in Jerusalem, or somewhere where this would have been a lot easier. Instead, the witnesses that we have are that Jesus is born in a stable as a construction worker. And the first people that come are another group of lay laborers, namely the shepherds, who were herding somebody else's sheep. So this is what our religious traditions talk about. And then you go backwards and forwards, and you find more and more of this labor stuff directly in our Judeo-Christian traditions. So what I'm saying here is what we're doing here tonight may be just as relevant, if not more so, than what's happening here on a Sunday morning. Now, I don't want to enter into a competition with what's happening here Sunday morning, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying if Christians and people of faith were to understand the importance of labor, this might be a very different place. This might be a very different country. It might be a very different world. So, reminding ourselves of the centrality of the labor stories, and sometimes what they can do, I'll tell you another one real quick. There's the story of Moses. So this is one of the initial leaders of the people of Israel, somebody who we usually think of as a great labor leader, or not as a great labor leader, but as a great religious leader. Right? Moses is the guy who then brings the 10 Commandments from the mountain, and who has a lot to say about God and how people ought to behave. But if you think about the real mission of Moses, it really has to do with liberating a band of slaves in Egypt and leading them into the promised land. And if you think about the burning bush story, the miraculous thing about that story might not be what we usually think it is, right? It's a bush that keeps burning and doesn't burn out. Well, a big hope, the real miracle is what God's saying out of that bush. God's saying, I have heard the cry of my people, and we will give them freedom. That is a miracle, especially if you think about how people usually think about God. We think about God as sitting up there somewhere above the sky. We think about God in the old days as a monarch. Today we might think about God more likely as a CEO than as a worker. It's those kinds of images that get reshaped, out of this burning bush. God saying, I have heard the cry of my people and will do something about it. So you might say maybe this is the point when God actually learns something about what's happening to the people and history changes. What if tonight was the point when church people, theologians like myself included, were actually learning something from the people and history were to change? This is the sort of question that is before us. And keep in mind, this was not natural for Moses. As the old stories say, this is a story that is shared, by the way, by all the three Abrahamic traditions. So the Jews, of course, know it, Christians know it, and Muslims know it too. One of the old stories tells us that Moses was raised in the palace, as part of the family of the Pharaoh. So it wasn't very likely that Moses would become a labor leader, but it's one day when he goes out into the street, he actually observes what's happening to one of these slaves, that he wakes up, and the story tells about how he overreacts and actually kills the slave master. That's not what we're advocating. So sometimes, these stories tell us also of some of the dark sides of our struggles and perhaps things that might not be necessary. But for sure, this the adopted son of the Pharaoh, waking up and becoming part of the labor movement, this is something that's quite fascinating. So, if you get me going here, I'll keep talking more. But the first point here is, in our religious traditions, Abrahamic for sure, we could talk about other religions as well, there's a lot of material that ties us into the labor movement. This is not something that we have to add on for social activists. It's already there. And I would argue that the church needs to recover it if it truly wants to be the church. This is not optional. This is not special interest stuff. We want to have Walmart. Of course we want to have Walmart. But Walmart goes a lot more to the core of who we are as the church than we commonly realize. So, So the sort of things that we now take for granted, the reason why a lot of us came here tonight, say that we have 8-hour work days, or that we have weekends off, so we can actually come to the church on Sunday, that we have, well, at one point used to have pension plans, that we are talking about women's rights at work, that we have ended destroying child labor, that we have certain regulations. All of that comes from the labor movement. This was never given from the top down. There was not an enlightened president so-and-so that gave this to the people. This was not part of the Constitution either. It had to be accomplished by the labor movement. But in these early days of the labor movement, 150 years ago, we had a lot of churches part of it. Religion and labor in these years, about 100 years ago, too, were much more closely related than they are now. The social principles that were so powerful as Methodists come out these days. And they were actually fought over not just, in conferences and in church buildings, but also on the street. And so what we have, the sort of things that we're taking for granted now, come from a combination of the labor movement and religious support. This is something that we keep forgetting, but if you put that out there, I think people might look at it differently. So these are also part of our identity. Plus, this, nobody believes this, and I didn't believe it when I first read it either, but 100 years ago, about 183 years ago now, around that time, they had camp meetings. Well, everybody knows, these Methodist folks had camp meetings. They had camp meetings out here in North Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, bringing together 10,000 people at a time. But you will not guess who was gathering in these meetings. Those were Christian socialists. Christian socialists, 10,000 of them gathering here in northeastern Texas and southeastern Oklahoma. Nobody knows about it anymore, but there must have been something going on at some point. And I'm just wondering if this spirit of revival, when we're talking about revivalism and all of that, is something that might make a difference today as well. So if it's been possible at one point, it may well be possible again. I just want you, before I pass on the microphone, I want to remind you of what we're actually saying. This is just one example from the United Methodist Church, what is actually on our books. This is from the social principles that you can find in the Book of Discipline. Here's what we're saying, official statement of the United Methodist Church. We support the right of all public and private employees and employers to organize the collective bargaining into unions and other groups of their own choosing. We reject the permanent replacement of a worker who engages in a lawful strike. So where we go to what we're talking about tonight. This is in the Book of Discipline. And then if you read on in the social principles, the Book of Discipline talks about the fact that, I quote, all economic systems are under the judgment of God no less than other facets of the creative order. And the Book of Discipline claims, quote again, support for measures that will reduce the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. This is not the Communist Manifesto, this is the Methodist Discipline. At the moment, I'm teaching a bunch of seminarians at Perkins Methodist doctrine, and they're very surprised. Lifelong Methodists, a lot of them who are on seminary, are very surprised that this is on our books. Finally, you have the churches here, but you also have broader bodies. Here's one, I know this is not a problem here in Northaven, but a lot of Americans are a bit allergic to the United Nations. But here's what the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in Article 3 says. Everyone has the right to form and join trade unions for the protection of his interests. Now, that sounds rather harmless. Everybody has the right to join trade unions. However, this is where I'll pass on the microphone. We have a situation in the United States where it is not that easy to join a labor union. Or we might say this is one of the freest countries in the world, but it's almost impossible for workers to form a union, to maintain a union. Well, we have some recent stories now from Theology. And this is not something that happens by default. This is not merely an accident. There's a real push here in all kinds of directions. I think the numbers that I've seen are, I can't remember the exact numbers, but millions of workers who want to organize, and only several thousand workers in the United States every year actually getting to organize. So if the church and the United Nations argue that collective bargaining is something that's good, we still have to look into what's actually happening in our country. Anyways, so here, religion and labor issues is not a sideshow, but it might ultimately help us reclaim Christianity, better understand who is God, who is Jesus Christ, what about the Holy Spirit, what is the church. So I'll pass this on now to Kobe Harris, who I've met about maybe a year and a half ago, and who has been very deeply involved in these struggles around Walmart. So, Kobe.
Thank you, Joerg. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to talk about my experience when I worked at Walmart. I actually worked at Walmart in Lancaster, Texas for 4 years, but I was fired illegally on September 30th of last year for participating in unfair labor practice strikes against the company for retaliating against me for joining the organization Our Walmart, which is an organization started by the associates roughly 3 years ago, basically so we could get better jobs, get more hours, get a livable wage. You know, so once I got fired, it put me down a little bit, but I realized I had to keep pushing. And the reason why I joined originally, I joined 2 years ago, because I just saw how they were treating the workers. You know, like people were getting less than 40 hours trying to take care of their families, you know, living on food stamps and housing assistance when they're able-bodied people. You know, the thing about it is people say it's all about the money, and really it's the fact that we want to work, we want to earn a livable wage. We're not just asking with our hands out. And when we decide to try to organize and form organizations like Our Walmart, the company retaliates against us. And I wasn't the only worker that was fired. There was actually over 20 workers that were fired last summer for deciding to take a guilty strike against the company, for retaliating against them as well, you know, for trying to tell associates about their rights and the policies and the fact that they have the right to organize. You know, so I think it's really important that the community supports us, you know, because you guys pay taxes. And we're paying billions of dollars in subsidies, you know, just to make sure that we're on food stamps. Because Walmart doesn't want to pay their associates a livable wage and treat them right when they decide to organize. And God doesn't approve of that, you know. There's plenty of scriptures that attest to that. So I just ask that you stand with us and continue to fight. Because it's important that if Walmart's going to build jobs and build these buildings that we pay taxes on, they need to provide our communities with good jobs and treat their associates right who decide to organize themselves and try to better themselves and not depend on the system. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not going to spend too much time going over what Cole went over, because what he said is the exact truth. You know, you don't have to work at Walmart to be affected by it. You know, our tax dollars are paying for health insurance that's being denied to people by billionaires. Like, how ridiculous is that? You know, people that make less than $60,000 a year are carrying the financial responsibility of those that take home billions of dollars each year. And for lack of better words, we allow it. You know, we aren't telling anybody to not shop at the store because we want the store to prosper. We want the store to be able to pay the associates more. Everybody seems to be excited because Walmart is in the conversation about paying their associates more, but it's good publicity. Why not be in the conversation? Nothing's been written down, no ink's been put on paper, so they haven't actually done anything. And that's the pattern that any Walmart associate will tell you is very common. They have no problem saying what they'll do. They have no problem promising you, I will. They have no problem blatantly lying, which is something that all of us in here know is something that God frankly does not approve of. And it goes further than just a lie, because it literally is a modern day type of slavery. No two Walmart workers are alike. No two Walmart situations are the same, but the same rules, the same policies, the same regulations are enforced in every single store. It is not to paint Walmart as the bad guy, but the fact of the matter is they employ 1.3 million people. We all know the amount of tax dollars that come from that. We all know the amount of social responsibility that comes from that. Because even if you give them a livable wage, they're not going to go to South Lake. They're not going to go to North Dallas and spend that money. They're going to spend it in Northaven. They're going to spend it in East Dallas. They're going to spend it in the bad neighborhoods that they already live in. So when somebody says, how does it affect me when I don't work at Walmart? I say, look at the streets. Look at the schools. All of these things are simple problems that, yes, can be fixed, through a monetary situation. And money does not solve everything, but the gift of having an abundance should be that you can give an abundance. So I just really want to state the fact that, what Kobe did was a risk. He paid the ultimate price as far as a work standpoint. Because we live in a society where standing up for yourself and committing a strike, even though it's a lawful thing, it's a strike against you. And you got to tote that. And as much as, I respect you for that, as much as the next guy respects you for that, until we get back to a point when being a union member and working a union job is a good thing. Because there was a point in this country where union members were role models. They were role models because they took care of their kids. They were role models because they brought weekends back. They were role models because you saw that when the postman retired, he drove a nice car. Things as simple as that will build our community from the bottom up. And that community is always going to end up in somebody's church home. It always goes back to that. As much as people say, I don't discuss politics in church, we all do, we sort of kind of do. It's like, this is your true home. You bring your family in here to mix with others' families, and you become one large family. And when you're all in here, there may not be a single Walmart worker in this sanctuary, but there's aunts of Walmart workers, cousins of Walmart workers, neighbors of Walmart workers, all these people that we say we love. And the simplest way to show them our love, and it may not seem like something big, but Walmart workers never get asked, how was your day? Something as simple as that. When we're in these stores, when we're having interactions, we get the biggest reaction from people. Because, they actually don't even say how that day was. Their first comment is, why didn't you ask me that? They still don't even say how that day was, because that's not something they're used to verbalizing. Is that not a form of mental slavery? I use the example all the time. When you see all these old depictions of slavery, how many 15-foot fences do you see? So the option to run was always there. But when you have a hold on someone's mind, what they see with their eyes does not make sense a lot of times. People saw what happened to Kobe, so it's realistic, They see Kobe fighting. They see him out here on MSNBC. They see people rallying behind him. They're still afraid. They see that Kobe has not suffered even though he has not been at work. They're still afraid. So what I ask everybody to do whenever I see him is, the next time you see a Walmart worker, say, hey, how are you doing? Find out what's going on with them at work, because I can almost guarantee you, if it doesn't bring you to tears, it will downright shock you.
45 local coalitions in 24 states. And what we do is to help improve working conditions for all workers is we invite other groups to get involved in labor struggles, to educate on worker justice issues, and to mobilize the community to stand up for workers. And I'll show you with some slides what that looks like. The past about 2 years, we've been involved in a campaign, Change Walmart, Change the Economy, and you probably know that there have been Walmart campaigns going on for decades now where people have tried to fight the practices at Walmart, and this is a renewed struggle. Why Walmart? Colby and William have already pointed out these things, but sometimes it's good to hear them again because some things just are mind-boggling. But Walmart is the largest private sector employer in the U.S. and in the world, and at being the largest, they get to set the labor standards. And it's not just for retail and service industries, but for the economy as a whole. And at Walmart, workers face exploitative wages, working conditions, and these have ripple effects throughout all jobs, even your job. I guarantee it. And that's why if we can change Walmart, we can improve the lives of all working people. And that's why we're in it. So one of the things I said we do is we try and educate the public, anybody really that wants to listen. And one way we do that is we partner with other groups. Some of you might be able to see the T-shirts. Those teal T-shirts are Texas Organizing Project. You've probably heard of them. They're very active here in Dallas. So we get together with other groups. We do our own thing. We try to bring the community together. We invite the press. Sometimes we're lucky and they come. Sometimes not. We leaflet. We put out leaflets, any way we can get the message out. And the message in our case with Walmart is, and here are some numbers for you, Colby and William had mentioned some of these, but Walmart workers make an average of $8.81 per hour. And that, the average annual salary comes out to about $15,500 a year. And that's because a lot of workers don't even get full-time. So if they did get full-time, they'd be making a little bit under $19,000, but most don't. About 2/3 of the Walmart workers make less than $25,000 a year, and that's because of the wages and not enough hours. And on the other side, though, Walmart makes profits, and in 2010, I believe it was $17 billion a year. And the Walton family alone, there are 6 heirs of Sam Walton, and they have more wealth than 42% of American families. Can you imagine that 6 people have more wealth than 42%? And in 2010, I think the numbers were $144.78 billion. Another thing we do to educate is we show movies, we go to other groups and have tables. On the right-hand side, those 2 slides are a workshop we held with Interfaith Worker Justice, and you might have heard of them. I think Northaven is now a part of Interfaith Worker Justice of that coalition. So we partnered with them and have done workshops. The Walmart situation is something we work on because it doesn't only affect Walmart workers. It's really what's happening to all low-wage workers. And a lot of times we hear, oh, it's just teenagers, the people flipping burgers. But just teenagers making some spare pocket change for, soda or whatever, gas money. But in reality, over 70% are 20 years of age or older, so these aren't teenagers. And about 1/3 of these people have a college degree. For the median wage is about $8.94, and about half of all workers rely on public assistance. And Mike Colby already pointed out, and William mentioned it too, all these workers depending on public assistance, that amounts to about $7 billion in public subsidies that goes to supporting these private multi-million-dollar corporations. And like William pointed out, this is hurting us, this is hurting the community. And these companies, they can afford it, right? Because they are paying their CEOs 788 times more than the average worker. And at Walmart, I believe it's actually 1,000 times more. So it's not a matter of, they just can't pay workers more. The money is there, it's just going to a different pot. Another thing we do besides educating, or another way of educating, is to get the community active. And we invite the community to march with us in rallies and marches. We get together, and here are just some pictures of last year's rallies and marches. And in this picture, you can see James and his wife. Another thing we do is not only the community, the faith communities, but labor. We get the labor community unions together, and in these photos, I just wanted to point out that it's that we try and bring in national AFL-CIO representatives. We get the woman in the picture on the right is Becky Mueller, the president of the Texas AFL-CIO, and so we try and get everybody involved. Some of the things we've done around Walmart were, for example, collecting signatures. And we went out to the parking lot and we asked customers if they would like to sign a petition in support of Walmart workers for higher wages, better working conditions, more hours. And in about 20 minutes, about 3 of us got all these signatures on that first photo that you can see. So it's not hard to, customers understand the issue. They know people. They've worked at Walmart. They know people that work there. And so people understand the issue. The picture on the right is the president of the United Aerospace Workers here in Dallas and myself presenting these petitions to the manager of a Walmart store, and he couldn't believe it. He thought, customers in my parking lot, and you got those signatures. So they were very amazed, and the signatures we also passed on at headquarters in Bentonville. So what was Walmart's reaction to actions like these? Well, retaliation, firing workers, intimidation. The workers they didn't fire, they intimidate. They say, well, if you hang out with Colby or our Walmart crowd, if we see you with William, you're out of here. And that happens. And lawsuits. So what Walmart has done, and I guess we take it as a compliment that our work was effective, they filed a lawsuit against Jobs with Justice, against the United Food and Commercial Workers, against our Walmart, the workers group, and against, I said Jobs with Justice, and against the founder of Jobs with Justice, Gene Lance, who many of you know. Him personally, they named him, and we are not allowed to set foot on Walmart property unless we want to buy something. And so our reaction to Walmart's reaction under the leadership of the UFCW and other groups was to do civil disobedience, and this happened twice last year in September. A group of, I believe it was 10 people, right, got arrested. And by blocking the street, blocking traffic in front of a Walmart store. And here are just some photos. There's Colby being arrested. And down here it's Mark Joerg, again, the leader, the head of the Dallas AFL-CIO. On Black Friday, we did another civil disobedience, and I was a part of that. And Middleton too. I've got a picture of him.
Marjorie.
In a few minutes, and Marjorie too. Another thing we do is we have workers' rights boards hearing, and some of you are a part of that, where we try and just like here, have a panel, have workers speak, have workers tell the community, and we especially invite people of faith, but have the workers tell you what's going on and what's happening. We also try and invite leaders, political leaders, like Congressman Mark VC is on the photo on the left, as well as Roberto Alonso. He's a state representative, and we had Rick Levy here. He's from Texas AFL-CIO. Another program we have is the Peer Chaplains program, and Colby's a part of that too. He's really active, and this is a program where workers get together with faith leaders and talk about their faith, talk how it intersects with their conditions at work, how they can use their faith to talk to other people, to talk to their coworkers, and connect on that level, and connect on how their faith can help them through these struggles, because the intimidation factor and workers or friends being fired, that's a lot of pressure on workers. It's not a nice working condition, right? And so the workers are very stressed, and to have a chaplain, to have a peer chaplain that you can talk to makes all the difference. And faith makes a difference, and that's what we have seen. The Peer Chaplains program has just been, it's pretty new. It hasn't been going on that long, but the Walmart workers that are a part of that, like Van Stel, he's on the bottom left with the megaphone. He's a part of that, and he goes out to actions, and he talks about his faith and how his faith helps him through these tough times. On the right is also a prayer group before we did a march and a rally. And Van Sel and Colby are a part of it. Here are some other photos of faith leaders you might recognize. Some, we had an action where we invited faith leaders to come and to rally with Walmart workers in front of the Walmart. And these are several different actions there. And just some more where we ask workers to talk about their faith. We ask faith leaders to talk about how they see the intersection. And there's Ed. So what can you do? Well, join Docs with Justice. We hope that DACA, or maybe you as individuals, would like to join our coalition, and that we can fight together in these struggles, because we can only win when we're doing this together. Join our actions. Become our friend on Facebook. I have flyers with our information outside on a table here. Come talk to me if you're interested. Educate one another. Educate your family and your friends. Be a part of the conversation around Walmart and low wages and around worker issues. And make labor issues a part of discussions here at church or with your faith community. Don't keep it separate, like Joerg pointed out before, that's often done. And the solution, as we see it, is be a part of collective people power. It is the only effective way to counterbalance the power of organized money. So people power against organized money, that's the only way we can win. Thank you.
I know that you'll have some questions about what we've been talking about. Let me, before we open up the floor, just say what I think came through very clearly, and that is we're all in this together. This is something that affects not only the Walmart Walmart workers are going through is more and more reality for other people as well. Wages are kept low, benefits are cut, hours are cut, and even middle-class people that once had jobs that basically guaranteed them good wages in a pretty decent situation are now laid off, and they're often coming back to jobs that look very much like what we're seeing at Walmart. That's one thing. What William was saying is you have a situation where a lot of what's going on is funded by taxpayer money. So we have a conversation about how public monies go to the poor. The truth is, they go up a lot more than they go down. They fund a lot of what the corporations are doing these days, and so we have to stay in that as well. As Rosemary was talking about the organizing, the growing organizing of people, we have organizations now coming together, and we have more and more church people joining us as well. Some of them are theology students, and there's maybe something growing at Perkins even, who would believe that. This is my 20th year at Perkins, so I've seen a few things there. But there's a new spirit. The most important thing that I want to remind us as people of faith, as a theologian, coming from the perspective of a theologian, that if you take these issues seriously, and if you start reading the Bible on the streets, if you start praying on the streets, if you start having conversations about the sort of values and issues that are dear to us on the streets, you'll see things change. You'll see a couple of topics emerge, you'll see some understanding. That's much more exciting than anything that you'll find in the greatest theology books. This is where the real excitement is happening. This is where some real excitement is brewing also among young people. I see this a lot. So as we're in churches are sometimes wondering where are the people that are supporting positive views of life, positive views of religion, positive views of people. We're finding them more and more in the streets. And I'm hoping, truly hoping for a connection between the pews and the streets, and hopefully the libraries and the academy. And here is the comment about the 1%. The Occupy movement has summarized that well for us, the 99% and the 1%. And I know people are worried very quickly that we're in some ways negative about the 1%. We're not at all. This is not spreading hate. This is inviting the 1% to become part of the 99% as well. And you have many stories in the Bible that talk about that. The story of Moses is the story of the 1%er that became the leader of the 99%. The story of Zacchaeus, I don't have to remind you of many others. There's the story of Paul, who had some of his own privileges, but as you well know, spent his life in and out of prison. We now have a few people among us here tonight who know what the insides of Dallas jails look like simply because they've been there. They've seen it. And I remember when Rosemary told me about the fact that it's really true that when you're in jail, you get a bologna sandwich. I didn't know that. So Paul knew a few things that most of us Christians, most of us followers of Paul and Jesus don't know anymore. Now, I'm not advocating let's all go to jail straight away. But what I'm saying is there is some lessons here to be learned, and I think we can figure them all together. I draw a great deal of inspiration from people like Kobe and William and what Rosemary is doing. And so let's open the floor now for your questions and comments.
Very impressive activities that you showed us of all the things that you've done at Walmart. What's getting Walmart's attention of what you've done? And the reason I ask is it's so easy to see that such a big, powerful company, it's so easy for them to say no to their people. It's like a kid asking a parent and they say, So what are you doing to get their attention more than anything else?
Well, so Walmart responds to the most of direct action. And we all know direct action has to grow for it to have a continuous effect. But what also works is them seeing a change in their employees. Them noticing that their employees are asking different questions. Them noticing that their employees are becoming more informed. So that does have a good effect on the inside. But the best way I can explain it is, we all know the story of David and Goliath. And we look at Goliath as being the larger opponent in the situation. But that's actually completely incorrect because God is the largest opponent in that situation. And the Walmart worker at this point is in a David situation where they're seeing a larger opponent in front of them, and they do not feel as if there is a stronger support system behind them. So they're to the point now where they're saying, why should I try? Nobody's paying me any attention. Nobody's helping me. I'm just going to lose my job and I'm going to be unemployed. So it's to the point now where it has to shift to be more than just a Walmart issue. It literally has to be a community issue in all the communities that are affected by Walmart. So for lack of better words, the Walmart associates have really shouldered that burden and have put it to the forefront. And it's the responsibility of us to make sure they have the support to continue pushing forward. But we also realize that we have just as much a vested interest in that as they do. Rosemary actually just reminded me of something. We, in the process of all the activities that's been going on, Walmart did make some very significant changes, and they appear to be subtle on paper, but they actually, their CEO, you say step down, retire, but in the midst of a very active fight, he decided to no longer be the company now. Part of that is a very large compensation package. So very easy for him, but the interesting part is the gentleman that replaced him has extensive labor history. He, is well versed in labor law. He's done things on the international level, which a lot of people don't realize, that the U.S. is the only country that Walmart does not have to deal with some sort of labor. So this is the guy that was already handling on the national level. So if you're going to stomp out a bug, you better bring in the exterminator. But everybody's so caught up that the old guy is gone, they're not paying attention to the new guy.
Thank you for coming. Just two questions. First of all, you've got some momentum on minimum wage with President Obama. Should pretend, is it 1010 or 1025 for federal workers? And then Gap announced today $10 by a year and a half when they pay their workers. And the stock is up actually, so apparently the market doesn't mind that. Is there a dollar amount that you guys are pushing for that you think guarantees a minimum living wage? And then the second question is, what are the laws that need to change to make it easier to unionize in Texas and
I appreciate that question a lot. The thing about it is at the end of the day, it's going to depend on us standing up for each other in order to change these things. We can wait on our lawmakers who have passed, quote unquote, to change things, but if the people don't start supporting each other and standing up for each other, nothing's really going to change. And I think that's what we always really hitting at pretty strongly. That we can't sit back and wait. We have to get active. We have to do actions. We have to get out there and make a little noise. And it's not violent. We're just holding signs. It's not knives and guns. No one's losing lives. And if they are, it's the workers who can barely afford to feed their families. So I think what we really need to do is just make sure that we stand up within our communities, realize that we're all family, we're all people, and these are basic human rights. To make a living wage is a basic human right. We're asking for at least $25,000 a year. The poverty line is $23,000. We're asking for just enough to not say that we're poor, technically. But $25,000 is still not enough. They can afford to pay us more than that. They can afford to pay us $30,000 according to an article in Forbes magazine. You know, so we're asking for a lot less than what we deserve. And we work for it. So why can't we have it?
Let me add a quick comment about the laws question. I do a lot of international travel and speaking also. And wherever I go, last fall I was some in Europe and some in Brazil. In either place, people cannot believe how oppressive our laws are against labor. So you know, Europe for sure has different labor laws where working people are not only allowed to organize. Working people are actually sending representatives to sit on the board of trustees. So there's a situation where that's actually happening. So we cannot have a board without labor representative on the board of the corporation. In Brazil, they have a fairly strong labor movement as well. A couple of years ago, but this was before the USCW came in with Walmart, we had some actions on a bill that was called the Employee Free Choice Act, EFCA, that was before Congress that argued or that would have made it easier for students, for workers, to actually form unions and to sign cards, to have the sort of union drives that would make it possible to organize. But you may have some more specific information on that. What I wanted to say about Dallas is, in those days, this was 3-4 years ago, we already started having very strong support from some of the religious groups, which I find encouraging. And so part of the reason why we're here tonight with Northaven also is to pledge for the support that you can give us for some of these projects.
And what I also take to your point about the actual dollar amount is, it's about creating situations like this, because it's not necessarily tied to a specific amount, but you want to show that they have the financial ability to do it. And if they're willing to step up and say, okay, we'll go 90 cents above what the government says, maybe they go $3 or $4 above. So it really, at one point it was 25,000, but if they step it up to 11, we have the extra 15. And then that way we only get 14, nobody's mad about it. But there's also other ways of how we create that structure around the politicians, because that is a very intricate part of it. But the different events like Rosemary was saying is, there are politicians that come out and they speak, and a part of it is they also get to see the community of folks that support them, so it makes it easier for them to go back and have that conversation about raising minimum wage. So a lot of times coming to the event is not only about showing support to that person that's throwing the event, it's also showing that politician that, hey, there's a group of people that really care about this. I need to push this issue. That's why a lot of our events should just really just be community events. Even though it may be by this person or for this person, we're all there because whatever that goal is, it means something to us at our core. And one of the events that we worked with Joerg Justice on last year was the Labor Day event. And I'm here tonight to say that our Walmart is committed to doing another one this year, because it's something that just needs to be honored. Labor Day needs to be respected. People that go to work need to be given a round of applause for being what they do.
Yeah, about what is a living wage, what should people earn? It depends on where you live too. A study was done last year in the Houston area, and they found that in order for a family of 4 to live well, not extravagantly, it costs about $63,000 a year. So, what is a living wage? Should people just be able to, make it? Should they be able to have a car and get to work, have a good running car and things like that? So that's a debate. And about the laws, what laws should change. I'm not versed in all the laws. I'd have to look that up and which ones
Volkswagen workers were trying to form a union in Tennessee, and they had a vote, and it narrowly didn't pass. But also, one reason it didn't pass was that not just because of the laws being such, but so much money and politicians coming out and speaking against the union. So even if the laws, make it possible, there's still a lot of organized money, working behind the scenes and overtly, against the union. So that makes it difficult.
I just want to say that the thrust of the campaign and the conversation has been about Walmart for good reasons, and how we use power in different ways to try to get Walmart to address the grievances that are real, that affect all of us. But one of the things that I also think is important is that sometimes it's good to work on the positive side, and that is, I never, when I go into my local grocery store, which happens to be one that allows people to unionize, I don't know we should single people out. I mean, we shouldn't lift up people, like Kroger or whatever. But I always go in there knowing that most of the young people standing there checking me out are mostly clueless about labor issues, how unions can benefit them. They have the capacity to be a part of the union, and it just kind of goes over their head. So sometimes it's good to say, I'm here because you have the capacity to belong to a great organization that stands up for you, unlike some other workers of the evil empire. They always know what we're talking about. And it's interesting because you get different reactions. So one day, about 3 of them were standing around, and so they called the manager. He says, this guy's here. And so they went into this whole conversation, and he kind of scratched his head like this. But I do think that's important, to affirm for people who have that opportunity ways to use that power and understand it as a benefit and understand the history, because by and large, it's not just that people have the organizing laws stacked against them, but so often we are ignorant of what it would look like if we had the power and we used the power so that we were empowered to reach out for that better life. So I think that's the other side of things. So when you get a chance to say to some workers, I just want you to know that it's important that you have this benefit. I appreciate that. I'm with you. I'm here to support that too. So it's that counter narrative that it's not just about Walmart. It's also trying to recognize people who are trying to allow the workers some latitude, which is not to say that any corporate structure is righteous. It's just saying that some are, less unrighteous.
How do you find that out?
Well, I don't know. I know mine has. Mine has the big sticker going in the door. That's because Angela's up there. That indicates that it is, a cooperating member of international, and so, I oftentimes see that. I just know from my experience in Cincinnati before coming down here that there is some history with Kroger, and so I was aware of that when I came down anyway. And I'm not lifting them up. I don't have stock in Kroger, so.
Yeah, but it would be good to be able to find that out about places you.
But there's not many places.
Yeah, in Texas, there's not many places. Locally, your Kroger is your union grocery store, and like Pastor said, normally stores do identify themselves, and when you're in the Northeast, you see it all over. Down here, that stick is usually a lot smaller, and usually behind a car rack. A lot of places they just don't identify themselves, so you could reach out to different local unions and ask them, what local businesses are members of your union, and they can list you every local business, and sometimes it's not even big things. Like for example,
removed from my position and jailed if I discussed collective bargaining with an employee of the school district. Also, if a school district employee wishes to file a grievance and have a representative from the association, that association has to declare that they do not espouse the right of collective bargaining before they can. So we've got a long way to go in Texas. My question is that the Walton Family Foundation contributes tens of millions of dollars every year to anti-public education causes. And we've tried to get people to boycott, but I'm not sure that it works, and I also don't want to harm the workers that are there. So, how do you recommend that, do you go by the service desk and tell the person there that you wish they would quit contributing to anti-public education issues, or what do you do?
Well, part of it is, that the knowledge of what they're doing has to be spread. Because, ALEC is a group that openly supported the Stand Your Ground law. Everybody knew ALEC was, everybody, knew about them, heard the stories about them, but the Walton Foundation also donates millions and millions of dollars to them. But here's how they operate. They openly said the Walton Foundation withdraws its membership from ALEC, support them. But individual members of the Walton family still donated millions and millions of dollars to them. So it's that awareness of, and there's different websites like, Walmart local centers, and there's different avenues that can provide a way to list out those different facts about what's going on and the different things. But, it really has to be a surge of associates and community so that they really paint the picture of why it has to be addressed. Because, we can call ourselves activists, we can call ourselves church members, but when a politician sees us, they see us. When a CEO sees us, they see customers. So when they see us, they see customers and votes. So when they see us as a united force, they may not believe in what we're doing, but as a politician and as a CEO, they're going to do what's in their best interest. And we just have to put enough pressure on them so that what they have to do is really for our best interest. But it has to start with education, and for the general school board, it's social justice and things like economics, shop class, auto repair are realistically things that need to be in schools if you are realistically preparing people for the workforce. You can erase some of those standardized tests and, make somebody, you can really equip somebody to, go out into the workforce. So it even goes as far as, how many schools really teach kids how to balance a checkbook before they graduate? So it's all of that. So it's not just the, education on the social justice aspect. It's realistically, we all are affected by this. We all have to represent our individual areas of change that need to be changed.
Let me add just one more issue here, because it might look like what we're talking about is basically money, but I think it's clear now, it's also power. And so when you talk about the Walton Foundation, when you talk about the individual billionaires, we're not so much just worried about discrepancies in money, we're worried about what counts for what influence do various groups have. And the point for us is not so much to complain about that inequality, it is to organize different places of power where we can actually have a more balanced view of the thing. As Americans, we're proud of democracy, so we need to think about it that way. What voice do workers really have? So we're talking political democracy on the one hand, but we're more and more beginning to talk about economic democracy as well. What voice do workers have at work? And this is not a matter of handouts or anything. It's not a matter of saying, we want to distribute more money downwards. It's simply a matter of acknowledging what workers actually contribute. I mean, workers contribute a lot more than they're paid. They're worth a lot more than $10 an hour. I mean, the work that you do adds a lot more than that. But I say it's not just about money, it's about power. Workers know something about business, and if you know something about Walmart, their work, they could actually benefit so on and so forth. So this is all together, and what we're then talking about is really how do we organize power differently. For a theologian, how do we think about God's power differently? Maybe not so much top-down, but organized bottom-up power.
Thank you all for coming in, for raising up this very important issue. But as a listener, do you want me to boycott? I mean, I personally already boycotted Walmart. But do you want me to go buy something and then talk to them? Or do you want me to stay away? Because it is kind of an ambivalence. Before you respond, I spoke to a healthcare worker in totally another setting. And somewhere in the conversation, I said, I don't shop at Walmart. And the reason I don't is because they don't treat their workers right. I mean, I said it in 2 sentences. And then the response, though, from the ears of the person who is also a low-wage earner was, that's the only place I can get things from my family at the price that I can afford on the wages that I get. So that hit me in the heart. You know, I didn't know, okay, now where do I go? Join G. Lance in the street, you know, get with it, Jan.
Well,
Go to jail or whatever it takes.
I don't know if a boycott is an answer because it would affect the workers in a negative way. I mean, because when you work at Walmart, it's usually because you couldn't find another job. People always say, go get a better job. But the better jobs aren't out there for people who aren't as educated, you know, and have a degree on a piece of paper that tells you that means you're smart. You know, so I think boycott is not the answer. I think what you do is you keep shopping them, but you let the workers know that you support them, and they have a right to do this. And when we have an action or rally in the local area, you go out there. And if you're a senior, we'll get you some seats and you can sit down and just hold a sign. Because she's one of the best activists I know in this state. You know, so, but I think boycott is not the answer. We need our jobs, but we just need them to know that we need better jobs and pray for them. You know, my biggest thing is to pray for the CEOs, you know, because one day God's going to have their day and his patience is going to run thin. Have mercy on them when that happens, but let's pray for them and hope that their hearts change. Because at the end of the day, you can get all the policies you want, you can increase the pay. But if their hearts haven't changed, they're going to go back to their old ways at some point. So my main thing is to pray for them. And also for the community and people out there, make sure you come out when we have rallies and actions and support the workers that way. When you go in and shop, tell them, I appreciate you. You have the right to organize. Let them know about our Walmart. You know, I worked there for 4 years. And when I got my W-2s back last week, I made $12,000 last year. It's not enough to live. To live in any apartment in the worst neighborhood in Dallas, you have to make double rent. So if you're not making at least $2,000 a year, you're either homeless or you're like me, you're living at home with your mom. Not because you want to, because that's what the system is forcing you to do. It's systematic. This is not just happening in Lancaster, Texas. It's happening in Garland, California. Every state you can think of, there's a Walmart. You're paying billions of dollars in subsidies, and the workers are poor, and they don't want to be. So just stay with us. When you have a chance, go in the stores. Just say hey to people. You know we support you, and come out. You know we have action rallies. Thank you.
You actually brought up a good point because, Rosemary mentioned earlier about the lawsuit, this injunction, because, it clearly states the point that even though everybody freely has the right to organize, which you're pointing to various different bodies that say, it's the right thing to do, the lovely state of Texas, one of the judges, signed this temporary injunction that says we can't go there and organize it. So how do you organize? You know what I mean? So it does have to be, like you say, it has to be where, you go in there and, we'll give them 50 cents for a bottle of water, but as you check it out, hey, how you doing? What's going on with you? So you can still, it's not like you're officially boycotting them, but you're not, spending a lot of money in there, but you're able to have a conversation. But like I said, at the point that we are now, we literally, you know, it's crazy. You have to buy something to be in here to organize when, yeah, when various laws says you have it right. So that's one of the ways they do it, you know. They use state law to get around federal law, and we all know when it comes to Texas law, it's a little bit different.
As far as I can tell, if you think about Rosemary's slides that we just saw, that oftentimes when people get together, even for the direct action on the sidewalk, because we're not alone on the property, there's the spirit moving, there's some love, there's some real excitement. And it may be the funnest thing that you've ever done. I mean, we think of fun, you know, going to a concert or you know, going to theater or all these things, but sometimes it happens where you least expect it. And that's something that we found as well. We're not talking about that much perhaps, but you know, when I see Kobe, when I see William, this is oftentimes an occasion for joy because we're seeing something happening. It's David and Goliath for sure, but David is pretty much a fun guy, you know, and he has a big heart, and that's what we're talking about. So I think you're grasping something. Plus, if you think about religion in this context, too often we think of religion as metaphysics, something that happens very, very far out there. Whereas if you look at the Jewish tradition, it's something that happens here and now. In these ancient Jewish traditions, there's not a lot of talk of heaven or the afterlife or what happens above the clouds. It's all right here. So salvation even is something that happens among people. And what we're looking for is people flourishing. That to me is the exciting thing. And what we're able to show, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's actually moving slowly. It's a tough time for it. It may have been easier 100 years ago when they had their camp meetings out there. But we're building it towards something just like that. And we may not be around to see it, but I tell my students, if we can do it here, that means Dallas, Texas. We can do it here.
We want to close to the discussion at this point. Thank you so much. Please help me thank Colby and Joerg and William and Rosemary, both for your witness and your word this evening. We're going to leave here and go out into the atrium where there are refreshments and opportunity for further conversation with our presenters. There is one opportunity that I want to urge you to. On Friday, April 18th, which is Good Friday this year, the Dallas Area Christian Progressive Alliance will hold its 9th annual Good Friday Walk. This is a meditation walk through the streets of Dallas, and where we have stations of the cross in a way, in front of the symbols of power, banks, federal government buildings, other symbols of power in the city of Dallas, to speak to the public about issues like living wage, and the environment, and gun reform laws. So we invite you to participate in that. The DACA table's out in the atrium. You might stop by there and look at the poster that's there. And several of us are here. Linda and James and Kim are members of DACA, and they can talk to you about that coming action. So I want to thank you all again very much for your word and your witness. And we'll continue the conversation outside.
Wait a minute. I want to answer one of the questions that was raised. One was about what kind of laws could be changed. One thing that can be done at the federal level is to repeal the Taft-Hartley Act of 1947. And at the state level, to repeal right to work laws, which we have here in Texas, and a lot of other states have that too. So I wanted to ask that question. And also, if Colby and Rosemary can tell us about upcoming events. I understand there's a movie screening and another gathering like this coming up soon. I'd like to hear about those.
We're having a showing of a movie called the high cost of low prices. But that's going to be on the 26th at Friendship West at 6:30. So if you guys know where Friendship West is, I think we might have some flyers.
I'm going to be out in the lobby exchanging email and contact information with everybody, so I can email the flyers.
Usually we don't compete, we work together, but on the 26th, we had scheduled something also. So at 7 o'clock at the Oak Cliff United Methodist Church, we're having another religion and labor discussion, and I have flyers out at the table. And March 9th, it's March 8th, it's International Women's Day, and for that we are celebrating with having an event from 1:30 to 4:30 in East Dallas. I have the address for you on a flyer, and we have President Becky Moeller, President of the AFL-CIO in Texas speaking. We have some organizers telling us how to use social media for organizing, how to use Twitter. We have someone speaking about her personal experience, giving us a testimony why she is an organizer in the women's movement, and we have a drama professor talking to us about how voice and using your voice and speech is important for organizing. And it's basically an event for everyone. It's free, but we want to encourage women especially to take action in 2014.
Thanks for that.